Okay. You are watching FRCD on CAN TV. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Oh, you know what? No, actually, I meant to show myself and then show that. Sorry. No, that's my fault. I apologize. I'm a little rusty. You're watching FRCD on CAN TV. Family Resource Center on Disabilities is the Region 1 Parent Training and Information Center of Illinois. You can reach us at 312-939-3513 or email us at info@frcd.org. You can also visit our website at www.frcd.org, and you can follow us on Twitter at FRCDPTI. You can subscribe to our YouTube page at FRCD1231, and we also encourage you to like us on Facebook. Family Resource Center on Disabilities is not a law firm or a legal service agency. And thank you for joining FRCD on CAN TV, where we discuss special education, parent advocacy, and resources for families of children with disabilities. My name is Paula Wills, and today we're going to discuss how parents can advocate during COVID-19. So it's been a while since Family Resource Center on Disabilities has been on air, and Happy New Year since I've seen you in this great late time of the summer. So today, as I just mentioned, we're going to be discussing 6 skills that parents can utilize while trying to advocate for special education services. So I want to get right into it. One of the first skills we're going to discuss is understanding your child's disability and IEP. One of the things you really want to focus on, especially now when things are so uncertain, as many of you know, it has been questionable in the state of Illinois as to whether there will be school, where students will physically attend school versus doing remote learning. There are discussions of a hybrid model that schools may be utilizing. But as the numbers continue to climb, the COVID-19 numbers continue to climb, we're just really not sure. It can still change. Much like March, where you are getting a new set of instructions on what things were going to look like, almost it seemed like every day. It seems like it could possibly be going back in that direction. But nevertheless, IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, still stands. As of now, there have been no waivers to IDEA, which means that your child is still entitled to a free, appropriate public education, and schools still need to follow the IEP, although it could look differently. So as I said, we start off with our first skill, understanding your child's disability and the IEP. Now is a great time to read over that IEP and then read it again. We say understand your child's disability. It's not necessarily just your child's diagnosis, but how does that disability manifest itself? What have you noticed over the last couple of months? That is what's in the IEP similar to what you're experiencing with your child. So one of the things, as I said, we strongly suggest is, like, for example, in the picture, we have a young man with Down syndrome. In addition to understanding the IEP, you also want to look at some of the nuances of your child's particular disability. So in this situation, Down syndrome. What does it look like from age to age? What have you noticed on your own? Is the IEP supporting any issues that he may be having or she may be having with her learning? So that's one of the first things. Knowledge is power. Know your child's IEP. Know their disability. So the next one we want to move into is knowing who the key players are. We want to know who is involved, who are the decision makers. Who are you interacting with? Who's going to be delivering services? Now, we often talk about this at Family Resource Center on Disabilities. We talk about, when you go to the IEP meeting, understand who's there, understand who's making decisions. Are they at the IEP meeting? Do they need to be at the IEP meeting? Well, even though your child may be in a remote learning situation, that does not change. So many of you have probably attended an IEP meeting virtually, or it could have been a phone call, but still, you want to know who's in that virtual meeting. How are these services going to be delivered? Are they meaningful? Are they guided by the IEP? Are they meeting needs? Are they helping drive the student to achieve the goals that are set in the IEP? So even though things are, as I said, like in March, as we all remember, things were a little wonky. Everyone's trying to figure out, depending on what your situation was, will I have how are we going to connect to our teachers? Will I need a Chromebook? All of these things, because, ultimately, basically what happened, aside from it being obviously a pandemic, your child's learning set was moved from a controlled environment to the home environment. And the home environment is controlled. But in an educational setting, especially if your child was attending, leaving home to go to school every day, everything there is conducive to learning. Now, some people argue maybe not, but typically the school is set for learning. Everyone's in the same building, all the supplies are there. If there's internet needed or a teacher needed or instruction, generally it's supposed to be in a school. Now, all students are at home, so that could look different. Some students may have access to internet. Some people may have access to a laptop or a Chromebook or iPad. Some students don't. You have some students who are homeless. You have, students who might have been living in I want to use the word group home, or it's going to come to me later, but they're not living in the house. So everything was delivered on campus. So, there's a number of factors when you take a student out of the physical setting of school that you got to consider in addition to their learning. The student had a set teacher, somebody in the classroom, peers, where it might be the parent or sometimes a caregiver or a relative. And also when we think of school, we think that's school is in this building. And I do other things at home. So you might do some schoolwork or homework, but it's not, I wake up, I'm in school all day at home, and then I do my other activities that I would do at home. Everything is happening in one place. So, we have to take in consideration that some things it's going to take some getting used to. But nevertheless, IDEA still stands, and you want to know who's in charge of delivering those services. And again, how are they implemented? So one of the things that I bring up here, we have the IEP team. Let me make sure the PC. So here we have the IEP team. We know obviously it's still the same. Parents, legal guardian, if the student's of age, they should be on that Zoom meeting or however that virtual meeting is being delivered. The general education teacher, special education teacher, evaluation personnel, school administrator, if appropriate, transition agency, and others with special knowledge of the student. So it doesn't change. It just looks different right now. I mean, obviously there are going to be some changes depending on the quality of internet. If you have internet, some people they're holding these meetings over their phone, so it really depends. Maybe you're in a shared space, but the IEP team is still the IEP team. So the next thing I want to talk about in terms of being prepared and advocating in in special education for your child during these complicated times is you want to know your rights and responsibilities. So I have here the fall 2020 learning recommendations. And I strongly suggest, even though it's about 100 pages, but I know the special education services start on page 45, take a look at it. Because even though things are changing, ISB has, or the Illinois State Board of Education has done a good job of keeping us up to date with recommendations and guidances. I remember back in March, this page seemed to be changing almost every other day. But this is a great resource for you to go to the Illinois State Board of Education or isb.net. And you can see here where you can, this is a great place to find any new guidances that the school may, or not the school, the state may be suggesting. So you see here, starting the 2021 school year, transition joint guidance. So if you're unclear about what regulations and where the state is at in terms of remote learning or just special education in general, go to the Illinois State Board of Education. That's a good place. Another good website and place to research is and I'm coming to that in just one second, the Department of Education, which is also a very helpful guidance. They also sometimes when schools are not clear, because again they're figuring things out as parents, and many administrators are figuring things out. So that's one of the reasons why these guidances are so important. So here we have the questions and answers on providing services to children with disabilities during the coronavirus disease 2019 outbreak. Now this came out in March, but I would say that this is also noted in the ISB guidance, which means this is probably the most recent document so far. So this is a great place to go and see what the federal government or Department of Education is saying as far as what the school is responsible for and what the parent is responsible for in terms of their rights under IDEA. So and many of it is discussing, right here we have a question, is an LEA required to continue to provide free, appropriate public education or FAPE to students with disabilities during a school closure caused by COVID-19 outbreak? And if you click on it, you get your answer, which I believe is yes. I'm not going to read it here because this is only a 25-minute show, but you get my point. If you are advocating for your child and you are unclear about exactly what your rights are, those are two excellent resources. And I also want to extend that again, we are a parent training information center. So if you're going through this, if you're reading these documents, you're going through the IEP, and like, it's not making sense. It's like I'm juggling 101 things. Call Family Resource Center on Disabilities. Speak with one of our parent trainers. All of our services are free. You can reach us at 312-939-3513. And basically what would happen is I would, or one of us would take the call if available, and generally we dispatch you to one of our parent trainers, and they will call you, and generally you could receive a call back within 24 to 48 hours. But yeah, if you have questions about like, well, I don't know what to do, or sometimes things come up like, you don't feel the service that your child is receiving is meaningful. Sometimes they said, well, they put on a video and that was supposed to be the social emotional portion of the IEP, and his assignment was just to watch this video. And I don't feel that's meaningful. He's not, or she's not learning anything. All right, well then one of the things we would do is we would talk about, okay, this first of all, what is the goal that's trying to be reached here? Is it in, what's in the IEP? And then we go and look at, is this meaningful? What did he get out of it? We look at data and all sorts of things. So I strongly say, but we do, our goal is to train the parent. So we will be there with you, but we ask that you're also doing the reading as well. You're looking at these guidances, and we'll walk through it with you and try to explain and based off and brainstorm what's going on here. So I strongly suggest that you definitely check out the rules, regulations, your school's policies. That's another good resource to look at while you're preparing for this upcoming school year, which is going to be interesting to say the least. But again, many people are working hard. You have administrators, teachers, parents, students. Everybody is trying to figure this out. So it's we often emphasize collaboration and partnerships when appropriate and possible. And if there was ever a time for everyone to collaborate, this is it. So, and we also suggest that parents also visit to check out this book, which is also located on ISB. You can also find it on our website, under the Individualized Education Program, the Education Rights and Responsibilities, Understanding Special Education in Illinois. This is a much friendlier, I think, read. It's broken down. So, based by various aspects of IDEA and in Illinois. So this is something that another resource that you can also be utilizing when you are kind of like doing your research and kind of coming up with your game plan for the fall. So the fourth skill that we strongly suggest, and honestly, it's a no-brainer here, become well organized. Now, organization can mean a lot of things, but especially at a time like this is a really interesting situation, because this is one of the few times where parents are going to have access to more data than the school. You're going to see how your child is performing firsthand, because not to say that everybody's situation is different. Obviously, some parents cannot be home with their children, and they have to use, they may have to use other resources. But for those of you who can, you're going to see, is the IEP matching what my child is experiencing in school? Is it helping? are these services appropriate? Or what happens when the child does not have access to this service? So these are becoming well organized. Is we just say it's like keeping data, keeping correspondence with the school, tracking progress, or even if the student even if things are kind of like going in a backwards direction, maybe your child's not making progress, um, or maybe they're forgetting things. So at the this is a time where you or whoever's home with your child every day, if your child is particularly going to be doing remote learning, that you're keeping data, maybe taking notes, maybe have like a mini diary of what you observed. That's something that you can also share with the IEP team. And again, going back to that first skill, that's why it's important to have read and to have a good understanding of the IEP. And I also bring up that if you don't, call Family Resource Center on Disabilities, because we can also help you make sense. We also provide training and workshops. Currently, all of our workshops are virtual right now, but still, webinars and one-on-one assistance. So you can even have a virtual conference with one of our parent trainers, because safety first, correct, right? So we get into skill 5. And this is actually from one of these slides are actually from a training we do called Skills for Effective Parent Advocacy. So skill 5, we say use clear, effective communication. And what do we mean by that? So one of the things, particularly when whoever you're communicating with, is we say, focus on your goal, show respect and expect it from others, manage your emotions, ask questions, rephrase for clarification, and always say thanks. So, what do we mean like when we say focus on your goals? Like there might be 101 things that you have a problem with in regards to your child's education. Focus on the most important one. Keep your eyes on the prize. If it's assistive technology that is your concern, focus on that, and then bridge in the others. What is the main thing that you want to focus on? What is the goals that your child is trying to achieve? We say show respect and expect it from others. Once you lose respect, or they lose respect for you, or generally it goes both ways, you're no longer focusing on the child. Everybody's trying to save face, save their job, not look like a bad parent, and it becomes less about the child and more about the adults in the room. And who loses out? The child. This holds true in remote learning as well. Manage your emotions. This is a tricky one, because this is your child, this is your baby, and having someone attack them, and especially having or feeling attacked, can really throw you off your game. Sometimes things will fall apart. Like sometimes we've heard from parents where they said your child is just lazy. And you see your child at home struggling with their homework, frustrated, focused, your self-esteem is low. So yeah, quite naturally you're gonna feel some kind of way about that. And now they're also attacking you. I mean, that's your child. Your child is lazy. What does that say about you as a parent? So managing emotions. So we say if you can attend an IEP with a friend, or someone who has special information about the child, do it. Don't attend an IEP alone if you can help it. Same thing goes for virtual IEPs. You can include a friend or someone who's there to support you during the IEP meeting. and asking questions. There are no dumb questions. Just ask questions. If it doesn't make sense, have them explain it. So, because if you don't know, you won't get the answer if you don't ask. And don't assume. Just ask. Just go on ahead and just ask. And then again, rephrase for clarification, because sometimes we interpret things. We hear things and we interpret it one way, and someone else can mean something completely different. So go ahead and repeat it back to them to make sure you heard it correctly, that you're understanding it, and that you're both on the same page. Because there's nothing worse. You walk out of an IEP meeting thinking one thing, and they're doing something completely different. And it turns out that you misunderstood, or they misunderstood you. So just go on ahead and just repeat it back to them. This is for example, I'm understanding that you mean this, 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 and that. This is what I'm hearing. Am I correct in that? Nothing wrong with that. Again, they're professionals, teachers, administrators. They should be able to break it down for you. And if they're not understanding you, they say it back to you. I'm sure they'll say, this is what I'm hearing from you. And if not, the idea is to work together. So I'm coming from a place of positivity. I know there are other stories out there, other horror stories where it didn't quite go that way. But in a perfect world, in an ideal pandemic world, we can have these discussions. And then again, say thank you. Particularly at a time like this. This is rough on everybody. You have teachers, special education teachers, who have children. Some have children with disabilities also, navigating this world. And as your child is remotely learning, so is theirs. So again, we have to collaborate. We have to work together. So also, when we talk about communication, let's talk about written communication. So again, we have in here writing letters. The letter should be sent to a person who can make a change. Be dated and signed. Focus on one or two issues. Be no longer than one page. Set a deadline if a reply is requested. Give your contact information. Be factual and free of emotional phrases. Remember to keep a copy for yourself. At Family Resource Center on Disabilities, we say if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So generally, when you have your correspondence, this is why we say make sure you're sending the letter to the right person. Who is the person who can, again, make that change, make it happen, and and sometimes in email, I know email timestamps everything, but sometimes you don't know if they got the email. So make sure it's going to the right person. Again, as we mentioned earlier, focus on, don't send them a 10-page letter. They will not read it. It's like, you're dealing with like administrators especially, or they may be dealing with an entire district, hundreds of kids. Stick to 2 points that need to have happened yesterday. Focus. Again, we say set a deadline. So, leave it open. I'm looking, it doesn't have to be nasty. Just say, look forward to hearing from you in 3 days. A response from you in 3 days. Give them some time or a week, depending on what the situation is. Or I'll follow up in 3 business days, or in a week or something like that. But make sure they understand. You expect a reply. Sometimes people, we send letters and you don't get a response. Well, stating that you would expect a response, they're going to be looking to find out and get that information to you, and they know you're going to be expecting a response in like 3 days. So even if they don't have it, they might say, we're still looking into this matter. Or if you follow up, they can tell you, we're still looking into this matter, or this is the issue, and this is who you need to contact. And then we say, again, be factual and free of emotional phrases. This is tough. I mean, because I personally am a very emotional person. Keep the emotion out of it as much as possible. Bring a friend. It's just the facts. Um, and again, always. I mean, even if you're sending an email, have a folder for like emails that you've sent to the school and replies. It'll just make it easier in the long run. Going back to keep it organized. And again, we say remember to keep that copy for yourself, which is a little bit easier um, with email. But we also say that writing a letter and sending it certified also is also and actually probably more preferred. But given the circumstances of particularly COVID and the pandemic, and you're not exactly sure who's in the office to receive these letters, email may be faster. Although certified letters are written into the law, so the important thing is communicate. So we look at goal 6, which is like our final. I mean, not goal 6, skill 6, which is our final skill. Know how to resolve disagreements. Disagreements happen. They happen more often than not, especially when things are unclear or things are vague, and for a number of reasons. So when we talk about resolving disagreements, there's two processes. There's the informal process and the formal process. So the informal process includes talking to people first, talking to people who make decisions, write a letter to key decision makers, set up informal meetings with you and key school staff. So what do we mean when we say talk to people first? So you might have a conversation with the teacher. Maybe the teacher, and if your child has an aide, maybe you guys might have a conference together, maybe or have an email exchange discussing the issue. If you feel it still has not been resolved or has not been heard, maybe the teacher or the special education teacher or whoever is not the person to make that decision. I mean, they answer to people too. Who is in charge of delivering services? Now, teachers can request services, but who's in charge of making sure that the service will be there? Who's funding that service? It could be a number of people. We're not sure. Sometimes the issue might be with the therapist or the paraprofessional, but the paraprofessional is not making the decision to provide more or less minutes, or whatever. And I use paraprofessional as an example. So the next thing we move on is to talk to whoever is in charge, I guess we said, making that decision. After that doesn't work, then you're going to write a letter to the decision maker. As is, you've had a conversation, you're not seeing results. All right, let's put this in writing. Sometimes when you put it in writing, because it's much easier to follow a paper trail, and you put in writing, they have to respond as to why or why not. And if you can, and also you want to demonstrate always that you're trying to work with the school and to come up with a solution that for what's appropriate for your child. So you'll put it into a letter, whatever the issue is, to the key decision makers, particularly when you disagree. Sometimes a common one is over evaluations. My child needs an IEP or my child needs an evaluation, and at times they may not. The school may decide against it. And then again, we talk about set up informal meetings with you and key school staff. So it might be better to have a face-to-face conversation. These are all informal processes. I'm not saying that you do these in any particular order, but these are informal. Now when we get to formal, this is where it gets a little murky. We're looking at mediation, complaints, appeals. So, obviously IDEA is a the law for special education, but this is where you may start needing other representation. Mediation is often both parties, the school and the parents might, are brought to the table, and then you have a third party who, not supposedly an objective party, it's supposed to be objective party, and try to come up with a solution. Um, we mentioned formal processes like complaints. So some parents might submit a state complaint, especially if it's a systemic issue. Um, then there is also due process. If parents and the school cannot agree, they may go before a hearing officer or and try to settle it in the courts, and then there are appeals after that. So that is more of the formal process. I will say this, that Family Resource Center on Disabilities, as I mentioned earlier in our disclaimer, we are not not attorneys or legal service agencies. So in that, when you start getting into the formal process, we will no longer work with parents simply because we're not attorneys. We're not charged to work with families in that capacity. We work with families through the informal process. The most, we can provide information as to what the various processes are, but we're not, our staff will not go to a due process or a mediation hearing because it's just not appropriate for us to do so. So, one point I want to mention that is very important is goal setting. As we've gone through these skills, this is something that you definitely want to keep in mind when you are looking at your child's IEP, when your child is learning remotely, or if it's a hybrid model, whatever model your child is in at the moment, because it can change. Even if we do start with a remote, or if your child starts off going to a classroom setting, it can change. They could be there for a month. They could be there for 6 months, and this thing could again, COVID. The numbers can climb, and it'll be like March all over again. So, you want to keep in mind always, what are your child's goals? What are their long-term goals for the school year? What are their short-term goals? And most importantly, are these goals SMART goals? Are these goals specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound? It still matters when they're at home, just like it does when they're at school. You want to because those goals are what's going to drive the services and the IEP. Is understand, is trying, they're going to, if they need to reach these goals. So if, for example, if sight words, reading so many sight words are part of their goal, and they're trying to reach that number, where they may need certain supports to help them reach those sight words. So what could that look like? And that could be a number of things. But you want to make sure that, again, with sight words, you have how many sight words they're going to read. You want to understand where they are at presently. Are these goals obtainable? So if they're able to read 5 sight words, so okay, well, they're going to be able to read, I don't know, Moby Dick by the end of the year, and they might be struggling with being able to recognize maybe 30 words. That might be very difficult. That almost, I don't want to say impossible, but highly improbable. You want to make sure that that's something that is attainable, and that they're on a track to do that. You want to make sure the goals are relevant. If is this moving them towards the major goal in the fight, whatever it is that they're trying to obtain. And then you want to make sure that these goals are time bound, a timely manner. Are they going to meet these goals in a month? Are they going to meet them in 3 months? Is it going to take the whole year? By the time they graduate, what is the deadline? What is the expectation for having met these goals? And you want to be mindful of that simply because you don't want a whole year to go by and they started the school year out with the goal to read maybe 50 sight words, and a whole year's gone by, and we only made it to, I don't know, 20. So something needed to change in there. And you don't want to, and kids grow. They grow, time flies by. So what do we need? What needs to be done to ensure that, or at least make sure they're on the right track? So yeah, what's the time track? And then is this goal the same goal that we had last year? And and if they didn't meet it, why didn't they meet it? Are we using the same interventions that didn't work to meet the same goal this year, and a year after that, and a year after that? So same thing issue that could have happened at school, at home. Are the goals meaningful? Are they SMART goals? And is the student reaching these goals? So that's certainly something that you're going to want to keep in mind as your child is learning remotely, whether it's you at home with your child, or a caregiver, or if your child is doing a hybrid model. Those are things you're going to want to pay attention to. And I want to say, again, showing you a picture of the site goals, I want to say, if this is again, this is a very short crash course on what is actually at least an hour-long presentation on effective parent advocacy. So if you have concerns or questions about your child's IEP plan, or you suspect they may need special education services, or the services that they have are not working, we encourage you to call Family Resource Center on Disabilities, or complete a speaker request form on our website, and one of our parent trainers will get back to you and discuss your concerns and ways you can approach this with the school to ensure that your child is receiving their free, appropriate public education. So I want to thank you for joining me today. It is good to be back in the CAN TV studios. It's been a while. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I wish you luck with the beginning of the school year. And yeah, thank you guys very much.